The internet board game forums are crawling with people asking, how do you make a game? I'm Steve Tassi, the board game guy, and I'm here to tell you how. Most people who know me from my board game videos. That's you. I'm talking about you, viewer. Or from my work as Chief Gaming Officer at Snakes and Lattes. But what you may not know is that in addition to having opinions about board games, I've also designed some. Now, I'm no Eric Lang or Uwe Rosenberg, but I've made close to a dozen games that made it to market. The reviews are pretty mixed, but for every game that people really hated, I've got one that was nominated for an Origins Award, so yeah, can't please everyone. Game design is like novel writing, movie making, or any other art form. There isn't one correct way. So this video isn't going to give you the true way to make a game, but it might give you an insight into the process. A big question people often have is theme or mechanics first? Different designers will have different views on this, but for me, every game of mine that has ever been produced came from a theme first, and I came up with the mechanics afterwards. Inspiration can strike from anywhere. There are games about quilting and house cats, bird watching, and ones about stained glass windows. But there's also games about conquering alien planets, swashbuckling pirates, hostage negotiators, firefighters, and battling demon-spawn creatures in subterranean tunnels. You never know where an idea will come from or what sort of idea might make for a good game. My latest project was inspired by my wife and I finally watching Train to Busan. It's very good, by the way, and if you like zombie movies and haven't seen it yet, you really should. But we were sitting on a couch and my wife said, I keep seeing this movie as a game. The board is a train cars and the humans are trying to get to the front. As the zombies fill up the cars, they drop off the board. So that is my initial point of inspiration. The next step is to think about different mechanics that could work with that theme and answer some questions. Is it co-op or competitive? How detailed should movement and combat rules be? What level of game do you want? My wife prefers games to be light and simple, and while I like a really good simple game, I have a much higher tolerance for complex mechanics. So we brainstormed. We talked about different possible ideas and ways that the game might work. Even if you work alone, designing your game solo, it's a good idea to talk to a friend about the game and bounce ideas off them. You never know what ideas might be triggered just by saying something out loud to someone else or something that your friend might say to you. While we had a lot of different ideas about how the game could work, one thing we agreed on early on was the idea that the humans have to get their people to the locomotive at the front of the train. So we focused on that as the jumping off point to shape our answers and other design choices. Like other art forms, game designers borrow from older works in their field or the work of peers, taking inspiration from these sources and trying to make something new. Very rarely does a designer come up with a game that is totally new and groundbreaking. For every Magic the Gathering or Dominion, there are thousands of games that took pieces of existing games and put them in a blender. With that in mind, my brain kept saying Cartagena to me. The theme is pirates, but the mechanics are you have a team of people racing against other teams of people to get down a linear path to the escape vehicle. In Cartagena's case, pirates on a jungle path leading to a boat. In the case of Train to Busan, it's passengers moving along a train to the locomotive. So now I have a design to emulate. I have no desire to just copy Leo Colavini's design and slap a zombie theme on it, but it's a jumping off point. The game design process requires iteration after iteration until you get the game that eventually hits store shelves. So even with Cartagena as my initial model, there's no way to know if the final game will resemble the mechanics of that game in the end. Only time will tell. The question has now become, how do I build off Leo Colovini's design to make something new? In Cartagena, the path is made up of 6 different images that repeat in different orders along each section of the board. But images is all they are. Nothing happens when you land on a parrot space versus a spyglass space, and so on. So I kept the idea of the board segments with repeating images on the spaces, but made the spaces do something. First of all, I had to come up with 6 images relevant to the game idea, and this is where I went back to the movie as a starting point. Cell phones, baseball bats, train tunnels, and washrooms all featured prominently in the plot, so they made it onto the board. Zombies were crucial too, so they became a space, and searching through luggage for weapons and other supplies in the film made me want to put a similar idea in the game. So the final image became the suitcase. And now that the suitcase had a mechanical idea attached to it, the other symbols needed effects too. Again, going back to the source material helped. They used cell phones in a surprising way. I won't ruin what it is for you if you haven't seen the movie. They hid in washrooms to avoid the zombies. The train entering tunnels allowed the humans to sneak by the zombies, and so on. Movement in the original Cartagena is accomplished by playing a card with an image on it and moving to an empty space of the corresponding image. But in the original game, there weren't effects, so nothing was better or worse about moving to a given image in and of itself. I mean, tactically based on the board state at the time, it would matter, go here or go there. But the spaces themselves didn't change anything. But since I wanted effects in my game, and the zombie spaces had to be a bad effect, zombies are never a good thing, I had to come up with a reason people would be willing to move onto a bad space, and that's where another big change from the source game came from: fighting. How do you fight zombies? I added fight cards. Moving to a zombie space is harmful unless you can play a fight card at the same time, which lets you land on the zombie and then move a little bit farther ahead. But what if you don't have a fight card? You move a space back and get overwhelmed by zombies. That's another thing the original game mechanics didn't have. So how does that work? What's it look like? It becomes the swarmed rule. A swarmed player piece is laid on its side, and if it doesn't receive help by the end of the controlling player's next turn, it is killed. Well, now what's help look like? Now we have to add a help mechanism. Help comes from 2 places. Number 1 is help cards. So now, in addition to the movement cards, akin to those in original Cartagena, we've added fight cards, and now help cards. Number 2 is the effect of the washroom spaces. In the movie, people hide from the zombies in the washrooms and at some points pull other people into the restrooms out of danger with them. What if you don't get helped? In a zombie movie, if you get taken down by zombies, you become one. So in the game, the same should happen. If a swarmed team member isn't helped in time, the pawn is removed from play, dead. But to make a new zombie, a zombie token is placed on the space where they died. Whatever image was on that space initially is now a zombie space. And this is a new element that Cartagena didn't have either. The spaces on the board can change what they are. So far, it's only changing into a zombie space, but maybe during the development process, that'll change as well. Who knows? At this point, I think I have the workings of a game. It takes the strong backbone of an existing game and makes additions that help the theme of the inspiration tie into the mechanics of the gameplay. I think it works, and I think the additions and changes will be engaging. So what next? The next step is prototyping the game and trying it out. And that will be covered in How to Make a Game, Part 2. Until then, I'm Steve Tassi, the board game guy, wishing you happy and safe gaming. And if you decide to make a game, good luck. Maybe I'll get to make a tutorial video for it someday.
The Board Game Guy here to tell you about an amazing phenomenon. Did you know that every time someone new clicks the subscribe button, my number of subscribers goes up by 1? I know! It's true. So, are you going to be the next one to click that button and make a miracle happen?